Hello and welcome to the program. I'm your host, Ron Whitlock, and we're here visiting with Mike Gonzalez, Executive Director of United Brownsville, and we're going to explain to you somewhat about what United Brownsville is as the program goes along. Now, we're here at the International Bank of Commerce in the city of Brownsville, the furthest city. If you look on a map of the United States, it's always got Brownsville because that's at the tip of Texas, right across from Matamoros, where the port of Brownsville exists, and we're attending the next Border Economy Revealed. And so we're going to try to reveal that to you. And to start off, we're going to bring up Fred Rusterberg, the Tri-Chair of United Brownsville and President of the International Bank of Commerce, IBC, Brownsville in Cameron County. Here's Fred Rusterberg as he introduced the next Border Economy Revealed to the general public here today.
It's a very historic day. We've been at this for about 7, almost 8 years. It all started with Imagine Brownsville, gave us a shared agenda which allowed participation from a lot of different entities, public entities as well as private. And this is very historic in itself. It will allow us, once we reach our potential, it will allow us to compete regionally as an economic region.
Now, Mike, you just heard your Tri-Chair, Fred Rusterberg, one of the co-founders of the United Brownsville organization. Right. Next Border Economy Revealed. What does that mean to the audience, and why should they care, and what does it mean to them?
Really what we're talking about with this initiative is creating an advanced manufacturing strategy, not just within Brownsville, but within the entire RGV region.
And going all the way up to Corpus Christi and all the way over to Laredo, including the entire state of Texas.
Well, it's really...
whatever starts here at the border goes all across the United States.
And really what we see is kind of from Brownsville to San Diego, we have unique opportunity being on the border to leverage the strengths of both economies. And we're uniquely positioned here on the border to do that. You know, one of the things that came out of our Imagine Brownsville Comprehensive Plan, you know, everyone always talks about the high rates of poverty we have here. We actually have, we've had poverty rates over 30% for at least the last 3 decades. So really what that tells you is, you know, what we've been doing is not working anymore. And the challenge we've had is economic, right?
Well, you've also got the highest birth rate, one of the highest birth rates, population growth of any MSA in the nation.
You know, we're definitely
in the top 5 anyway.
We're definitely a fast-growing region, and that really creates a greater priority to create more economic opportunities for citizens here. You know, I think a lot of people are committed to this community. Usually in regions where you see economic activity decline, you see a corresponding decline in population. But here, because of the family ties, because of the ties to the community, they choose to stay
Predominantly
here.
Roman Catholic.
Yeah, well, and the challenge I think here is, okay, we have this young human capital base, and it's actually a great opportunity. When you talk to you know, leaders in other regions, you know, they will love to have our demographics. It's young. It's still in the educational system. You can really
as long as they got education and healthcare, they're going to be just fantastic.
Well, and that's kind of the thing is you know, what are we doing to create economic opportunity? How are we aligning the education that you're doing now with the needs of our economy going forward? And that's really what, you know, the whole concept of BINET is how do we take the assets we have now and transform the whole border region? You know, we're still under the legacy of the Maquila program and the original NAFTA. Now there's a lot of talks about NAFTA 2.0, which really looks at the North American bloc as an integrated competitive bloc. And before they would say that Mexico, you know, they kind of would bring them along in the partnership. Well, going forward in North America, Mexico is going to be driving the growth in the region. So, you know, it's here in the border area, we have a great opportunity to really integrate our advanced manufacturing capability with the U.S. third largest trading partner.
Mexico.
Exactly, Mexico.
And we have viewers in Corpus Christi on KTOV and Fox 38, and they're interested because Lloyd Neal, the Republican county judge in Oasis County, says, folks, we need to consider ourselves part of the border, and in fact they are. They're kind of the sister port. They're the refinery port to Brownsville's Mexican port, importing a lot of goods, steel, and other things into the country of Mexico.
And you know, the U.S. and Mexico have a unique relationship. You know, back a few years ago, they reached over $1 trillion in trade. It's one of the greatest unsung economic victories. And you know, folks who are not right on the border really understand that as things are being manufactured, they actually cross the border up to 8 times. You know, so.
Really?
Yeah. So
back and forth, back and forth.
Exactly, because that's how well our manufacturing infrastructure. That's how well they're integrated. You know, so an export product in the U.S. can contain up to 60% of U.S. component versus 5, 6, 7% when it comes in from China. So it's in our best interest, to really further integrate that relationship, because really what it is, it's a manufacturing powerhouse. And if we can work as one North American bloc, we can really compete globally. The dynamics that are offered here, no one else can really touch. And being here on the border, we have that unique perspective of being able to understand both economies and the strengths that they both bring to the table.
Wow. As we talk about that, we're going to bring in now for a quick little quote Congressman Philemon Vela, who has residences in Corpus Christi and in Brownsville, and has a wife who lives in Corpus Christi predominantly because she's a appellate judge there in that community and in Oasis County. So here's Congressman Philemon Vela, whose district goes all the way from Brownsville up and skirts around Oasis County and goes even north to the north and west of the city of Corpus Christi and Oasis County. Here's Congressman Philemon Vela.
Around this country, when people start thinking about the border, they can start thinking about good things, like SpaceX and our ports, our rail, and all of the good business that we have, instead of all the things that they like to focus on.
So Philemon Vela is behind this BINED, this bi-national economic engine that he's trying to promote and engage and encourage. What does that mean, and what is that going to mean to going upriver to Laredo and then all the way over to Corpus Christi as we try to incorporate the entire region together as one block of economy?
And I think without the leadership of Congressman Vela, this would be really tough, because it has to be led at the local level. The local municipalities, both sides of the border, they have to do a lot of the work, but it has to connect with federal policy and federal initiatives. The EDA grant we got today is a great example of that.
$300,000 check, a big one. The audience is seeing that on the screen. $300,000, and we're going to explain what that $300,000 is going to go for when you finish what you're just talking about.
Yeah, and the $300,000. We had a very diverse group in the press conference. And all those were folks that we engaged with all along as we were trying to build this initiative. You had the private sector, you had the maquila industry, you had local elected officials, you had the Asociación de Empresarios Mexicanos. I mean, all that kind of really gave us the right perspective. And the consensus was the very first step, the very next step we need to do is to really analyze the supply chain that we have right now. What components are moving around? Because if we're going to build advanced manufacturing clusters, we need to identify what components that are coming in from the outside now. We just talked about just in Matamoros, they have $8 billion worth of annual sales. However, about $6.4 billion of that comes in from the outside. That's just this one area. So that $6.4 billion represents opportunity of components we could be manufacturing here. That not only makes our manufacturing base more competitive, it creates the jobs that builds wealth. Those are the kind of jobs that we want to bring into the border region.
So any community in the region, in Texas, in South Texas, that wants to be engaged in the BINED, welcome aboard, because you're a collaborative organization, United Brownsville,
That's right.
all engaged with International Bank Commerce, a big promoter of international commerce and international business, and back and forth between Mexico and the U.S., Central America and the United States, and Canada, and so forth.
Right.
So, and we're going to talk more about that when this program continues, and we're going to give you a little bit of a comment made by Jorge Ayala from the Economic Development Administration of the United States of America, who brought this $300,000 check to the city of Brownsville. We're going to explain why EDA provided this grant and what it's going to accomplish when this program continues. So stay tuned. Welcome back to the program. Your host, Ron Whitlock, with Mike Gonzalez, Executive Director of United Brownsville. As we promised, now here's Jorge Ayala, Area Director from Austin of the Economic Development Administration.
Well, I applaud you, first of all, because, this idea of the power of collaboration is great. I mean, that's what we have to do in today's economy, because we're not competing against each other, although we think we are. We're competing against people outside of our area, maybe globally, maybe binationally in this case, in other regions of Texas and other states. And so I applaud you for working together, for putting together United Brownsville. I think it's a fantastic idea.
Now, you just heard Jorge Ayala from EDA, who was involved with Pedro Garza, the regional director, his patron, his boss.
Right.
And by the way, Jorge is from Edroy, Texas, and so that's very important to us in South Texas. We like homegrown folks, especially those who are able to go and try to help us provide a stimulation to our economy and economic development. The guy that brought you the $300,000 check from EDA explained it was easy for them to do because you were united in one collaborative group, United Brownsville. How'd that make you feel?
Well, it really, I guess, gives credence to the fact that the approach that we're doing is the right way to move forward.
A collaborative grassroots organization from the bottom up,
and
but then you're at the top, you're dreaming big dreams like SpaceX and things of that kind.
Yeah, I mean, the big thing that we really focus on, what are the big game changers for our region, right? How can we really transform? It's easy for all the partners that we work with to kind of get bogged down in the maintenance stuff. So what we do...
Those will be the Chambers of Commerce, Economic Development Corporation, the counties, the cities, the other players, the other stakeholders in what you're doing.
Right, and that's why we cast a pretty wide net, was to really understand, just when we thought we had the problem figured out, somebody would bring in another perspective that was critical. And that really kind of changed what this was and how we move forward. But I think the big reason EDA decided to invest here in the border region was because it was not a partnership that was just on paper. They saw that it was all these different areas.
Top-down driven, one guy at the top, county judge, mayor, somebody really making it happen, and it's going to be my way or the highway. It was everybody working together.
Yeah, exactly.
Collaboratively.
And it was really with a clear focus. How do you raise our region out of poverty? And we knew that economic development was a key, and it had to be the right policies on economic development. And that's really what they're funding. And for us, there was three things that were key. Is first of all, the money is important because that allows for the detailed analysis to move forward. But the other thing too is, we see it as more than just a grant. We really see it as a joint venture between the federal government and the local leadership here, because they bring expertise just by the nature of their work.
Now the audience sitting there, they're seeing $300,000, and some who are opposed to largesse coming out of the coffers from the nation's capital. In some cases, there's folks who says it's my tax dollar.
Right.
One of those dollars, some of those dollars, many of those dollars, those $300,000 are my dollars. So I want to know what's it going for. So what is that $300,000 going to be used for, Mike?
So it's a detailed analysis that actually looks, how can you make this border region more competitive? We talk about how many U.S. jobs are tied to production in Mexico, whether it's the Mexican consumers buying products made in the U.S. or the components, as I said before, as they're crossing. There's a lot of U.S. jobs in states besides Texas that are directly tied to the Mexican economy. If we can figure out here in the border region how to make that more competitive, now we're talking about actually just making the economic opportunities broader for everybody else. We're creating a larger stake for everybody, not just divvying up the same pieces. So that's what this investment is. When we work with the Gates Foundation, they talk about their investment they make in, let's say, like a school district in Houston, and how much money that is there. But their investment is a small investment, the guy's a larger investment. And that's what we see here. This $300,000 is an investment that guides future investment that's going to be made at the community, but it's going towards something that actually produces results.
So how is that $300,000 going to maximize itself and return this investment made by the federal government to the federal government? Going to be additional taxes, going to be additional balance of trade benefiting the United States as opposed to China, India, Far East, some other country. Yes? Is that how it works?
Yeah, it makes the U.S. economy more competitive. So it is the balance of trade. You always want your metro areas, being able to compete globally, because eventually you're attracting the private sector investment, but it has to start with a deep analysis of how do you get there, and that's what this funding does. It's going to be through the private sector investment that gets attracted by the growth we have here in the region, and it just makes the U.S. more competitive, back on the manufacturing jobs that are key to our nation. As one of our presenters today talked, nothing inspires the youth as economic opportunities. So if they see that there's economic opportunities here in the region, it motivates them to excel, to continue their education. And I always think about the Pentagon actually, went out and they said our #1 threat to national security is in the military. It's an economy. If you can make your economy stronger to present opportunities to your nation, that's kind of the new perspective that we're in. Part of national security is how strong is your economy, and that's exactly what this provides. It provides an active region on the border with a strong opportunity to build up an advanced manufacturing cluster. And that's what it gets you at the end of the day.
We'll be back with the program coming to you from International Bank of Commerce. When this program continues, we're going to talk about Keith Ools, chairman of the Brownsville Economic Development Council, and what he had to say about why United Brownsville is such a key component of collaborative effort and why things are happening in this community on the border. Welcome back to the program. Your host, Ron Whitlock. We're discussing the next border economy revealed with Mike Gonzalez, who's the executive director of United Brownsville, and collaboration on a lot of entities in the community on the border, which also the border including Corpus Christi, and of course all the way up to Laredo. So, Mike, Keith Ools, chairman of the Brownsville Economic Development Council, told your revealing here today in IBC's conference room that he thinks the United Brownsville organization had a lot to do with what's happening in the community as we speak.
Brownsville has had many exciting days very recently. I mean, we're very excited about SpaceX. We're excited about what's going on at the Port of Brownsville. We're excited about what's going on at the university. We're excited about what's going on at PUB. And all of those things are coming together and are projects that are transforming the economic future of this community.
In your opinion, the SpaceX launch organization coming to Boca Chica Beach, right in your community, was United Brownsville in any way responsible or could take some of the credit for having that becoming a reality, Mike?
Well, the GBIC BDC, they're members of United Brownsville. And the big thing when we were working on that is how do you show the community support? Because there's things that they're going to need from throughout the community, and how can you actually develop that partnership to be able to attract it? Whether it's supporting stuff at the state capitol that had to get approved, whether it's supporting the concept of what this means to the region and the infrastructure that's required to move forward. That was our direct support for the project. And the exciting thing about having someone like Keith Ools in our collaboration, he really brings the perspective of what's going on out there right now for economic development. And he was one that really shaped and redefined key parts of the BIND concept. For example, we talk about SpaceX coming.
BINED being binational.
Binational, right? And so the one thing that's interesting is when you talk to a lot of folks in economists, economic development professionals, they'll say it's very hard for a region to get an entire new industry cluster. But that's what SpaceX represents. We have a new aerospace cluster that was brought into the region. Now the question that Keith Hughes understands is, well, how do we build from that? How do we use that as a seed that we build an
The
entire
launching
cluster
point,
around?
so to speak.
Yeah, exactly, a launching point. And
Pardon the pun, Mike.
no, it's right on. How do we launch that to actually build an entire cluster on it? Well, that takes a lot of partners. It's understanding. Same as what we're doing to understand what components are being made in the maquila industry. It's the same thing here. What components come in to actually put together one of these launches? But without a group focused on saying, well, let's make this a priority, let's build on that, then it's very easy to say, all right, well, we have that, let's move on. And that's not what's going on here.
The maquila industry is a twin plant situation, one plant on the Mexican side, another component plant, which may be administrative and those kind of things on the U.S. side. That's what
Right.
the maquila is all about. It goes back to NAFTA, which started 20 years ago,
Yeah,
más o menos.
right around there. But the big thing is when they opened it up, for maquilas to be located throughout Mexico. So the maquilas on the border actually have a lot of competition from the interior of Mexico. And that's another thing where we're excited about BINED, because if we leverage the strengths on both sides, then all of a sudden it makes those maquilas on the border more competitive. If you're able to have access to capital on the U.S. side, access to R&D facilities, the patent protection. So it's, we really see it as critical. Otherwise, the general trend is for new manufacturing facilities to go into the interior away from the border. We see this as one way to counter it. Yeah,
Places like that.
Querétaro, Aguascalientes, all those areas.
Correct.
So this, again, and that's why it's a true binational strategy. There's benefits on both sides.
We'll be back with a wrap-up, and we'll have the board member of the Brownsville Independent School District and have him tell you why he's the biggest employer as Brownsville Independent School District. It also has the biggest student body of any school district south of San Antonio. When we continue here on this program, stay tuned. Welcome back to the program, coming to you from International Bank of Commerce. Your host, Ron Whitlock, and Mike Gonzalez, Executive Director of United Brownsville, on the wrap-up segment. Now, during our next Border Economy Revealed, which occurred today, that we are videotaping for your interest, Cesar Lopez, who's a board member of the Brownsville Independent School District, explained to you and to the audience why education is a key component for economic development in any community.
With nearly 50,000 students, BISD is the largest employer south of San Antonio. We have the largest enrollment south of San Antonio as well. So it's important that we work together with these initiatives. And this is why, as education institutions, we must collaborate on initiatives like SpaceX and BINED. Initiatives that will work to transform our region's economy and provide inspiration to all of our students.
Now, Mike, as the biggest single employer south of San Antonio and having the biggest student population of any independent school district south of San Antonio, the gentleman really hit the nail on the head, because education is everything, because everything in this century has something to do with a trained workforce.
Right. And that's, one of the biggest things that people talk about is human capital. I mean, that is huge when you're trying to build a competitive economy. And the nature of work has changed. It used to be, you were trained on one specific role, and you did that year after year after year after year. But now, a lot more critical thinking is involved, and it's really grown to a more dynamic, background that people really need to really develop competitive human capital. But within our United Brownsville partnership, we have BISD, the University of Texas Brownsville, and TSC. And the reason that's...
You also have banks and individuals and companies, car dealerships.
Public institutions.
Nobody's excluded from United Brownsville, basically.
And that's how our partnership kind of extends. That's how we really see the opportunities, and we really engage with the entire community to really understand where the opportunities lie. But
I once heard that winners include and losers exclude. Winners
Yeah.
include, and that's what United Brownsville is all about. It brings in everybody, and losers exclude, and those may be the individuals who we want to be in control. We are the county government, city government, whatever.
And there's a great proverb that says, you know, you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together.
Wow.
And that's really what we're building here is, you know, as we continue to build the relationship, you know, people are just naturally engaging that weren't necessarily engaging before, but it's critical for them to engage at that level. You know, to build a successful economy, you need power. You know, you need human capital, you need logistics, you need you know, all this has to mesh together into one agenda.
You can go to our website, ronwhitlockrreports.com or ronwhitlock.com, and watch this program anywhere you wish, 24/7 worldwide. Thank you, Mike, for participating in our program here today. Thank you for watching. Until next time, adios.